Hi everyone, I'm Zan, your astrologer, and welcome to your horoscope for the week of April the 12th, 2021. Next week we are definitely going to have a very intense, dynamic, action-oriented sky, where without a shadow of a doubt, the superstar of next week's astrological show is this new moon taking place in the sign of Aries on the 11th or 12th of the month, depending on which side of the planet you're on. And even though I have spoken about this new moon in great detail in all my previous horoscopes, this one is so very important that I just cannot leave it out. I do have to mention certain things again, even if that makes me sound like a broken record. Yet I have no other choice because the sheer intensity of this energy is going to link every event and every major change or even setback, emotional high or low that is going to be an active part of our lives next week. Everything is connected to this new moon. The events that this new moon is going to be setting into motion. And even after the moon leaves the sun and the sign of Aries, and it moves on to Taurus, then Gemini, and so on, all of the planets in the sign of Aries are going to be holding some very intense, very powerful celestial conversations, becoming active parts of this ongoing Eris and Pluto square. And that can be a massive game changer both for us individually but also collectively. Of course, there are some really good things happening as well. For example, Venus leaves her detriment of Aries and enters her home sign of Taurus, which is usually a really positive, beneficial energy shift, because Venus loves being in her home sign of Taurus. That is when she is earthly, she is embodied, she is able to bring forward her very best qualities, even here down on earth in a very material sense. Although this might have some setbacks as well, but not really due to astrology or Venus herself, but rather, the social distancing and all the restrictions, everything that is basically taking place in the world. While they do have a very limiting effect to Venus and everything that she represents, especially in the sign of Taurus, a place in the sky where she likes to feel, touch, smell, taste, enjoy life, all the small pleasures, the bigger pleasures of course. She likes to express her beauty, her love quite physically, which means meeting physically the people that you love, who you love to spend time with, generosity, or simply enjoying sunshine, enjoying being outdoors in nature, and all of these very important things in our everyday lives that make life beautiful, that make life worth living, might be restricted in many parts of the world still. So this might make this Venusian energy, even though it's beautiful, it's exalted, feel a little bit uncomfortable and frustrating because the desire is there. And even if we might have everything that we need in our lives to do it, enjoy it, immerse into it, because of the rules and restrictions, that might not be possible for everyone. So it kind of is what it is. But fortunately, at the same time as Venus enters Taurus, there is going to be another celestial conversation where Mercury holds a sextile with Saturn. A celestial dance which can also be translated into where there is a will, there is a way, as long as we improvise, as long as we negotiate, or basically invent and come up with a unique way where we can both enjoy these Venusian vibes, these Venusian impulses, yet respect the law and all of that at the same time. So I'm pretty sure that this very ingenious Mercury can find a way, aided by Saturn, to give us the chance to truly tap into Venus spending some time in her home sign. It isn't just Venus who is going to be holding very important celestial conversations. The Sun and also Mars will have a very great influence, especially Mars, because at the very, very beginning of the week, this new moon and all the other planets in the sign of Aries are under a heavy Martian influence, not just because of the sextile they hold with Mars, but also because they are in Mars's home sign of Aries, a part of the sky where Mars is extremely powerful and action-oriented. So all of this will create a really, really strong urge, inner impulse, instinctual determination for us to take action, for us to work, to make choices, to invest our energy, everything that we can, in order to accomplish what we desire, or a new beginning, or a massive upgrade, improvement of something that we might already have in our lives. In other words, everything that has to do with the symbolism of a new moon. Yet because this new moon is in the sign of the warrior, well, you can imagine that all of us are going to feel this instinctual determination, this great ambition to fight for what we desire more than ever. This is where we're willing to sacrifice, we're willing to invest all the power, all the mastery, basically all of the inner power that we possess in order to get where we want to be. And also because the Aries planets are holding a square with Pluto, we are definitely going to be fighting either symbolically, even if it's just something interior, like taking place in our inner world, inside our psyche or unconscious, or externally in any way, shape or form. For example, relationships, a contractual or work situation, within our friendships and social connections, or, collectively speaking, without a doubt, people and what they want, what they desire versus centralized power and the rules and regulations. Those people, the ruling class who hold power over the collective. So that is definitely going to be a major theme here. But, regardless if you look at this collectively or individually, regardless in which area of life this takes place, we are still going to fight for our powers, to own our powers, to get our powers back, for others not to have any unhealthy influence over us. And naturally, many times perhaps compromise is also part of this picture, as long as that compromise, whatever we might have to surrender to find the middle path, so to speak, must not be unfair, and it must not disadvantage us, especially regarding our future plans. Now let's just take a moment to examine the complexity of this energy. Let's take a look at which planets are in the sign of Aries at the very, very beginning of the week, at the time of this new moon, but even after the moon leaves the sign of Aries. So first of all, we have Chiron, the wounded healer, our wounds, and all of that life experience, self-knowledge, wisdom, and basically power that our wounds, going through those very painful experiences which left us wounded, bestowed upon us our lives, those are basically a valuable source of inner power. Then we have Mercury, planet of the mind. In the sign of Aries, it really, really empowers our instincts and the intelligence of Mother Nature within us. The way I always think about Mercury and Aries is, when a flock of birds take off and they start their journeys to a different continent, they have to traverse land, seas, water, everything. And most of them will always get to the destination that it's the most appropriate for them. Well, that is a beautiful example of Mother Nature's inbuilt intelligence and inner guidance system. And since we human beings are part of nature, this is also something that we possess. And it is exactly in moments, astrological moments like this one, when this intelligence just grows and grows, and it can actually guide us in the most miraculous of ways through our instincts and through autopilot. Also, what's truly beautiful about this Mercury in Aries under the present conditions, when all of the major planets are direct, so nothing is retrograde, and the Mars sextiles and all of that, so a very, very action-oriented energy. But sometimes for some people, for some individuals, exactly not taking action, not following their heated desires, which is the right way, which is the right guidance. And Mercury, this Aries Mercury, is able to do exactly that. Maybe through fears, maybe through instincts not to go forward, maybe through a little bit of anxiety, yet still, nature's intelligence is so very proficient and powerful that it can basically tell us through our instincts when to go forward, when to take action, but also when it's not the right time to take action. So this is truly a saving grace, because through our instincts, this Mercury can actually align us to the right timing. Like, even though this new moon and all of these Aries planets might suggest that many of us have to take action right now and basically do things, make choices, create work, and fight for what we desire. Well, that doesn't mean that it's going to be next week for all of us, the right moment, the right timing. A new moon has a sphere of influence of 6 months. So basically, even though the chances are that it's gonna be much quicker than that for most of us, but opportunities don't really depend on us, because we're not just blindly fighting, we're not just blindly working towards our future plans, dreams and goals, and basically following our inner passion. We are also doing this for our long-term futures and security and well-being. So that means we have to be also very rational and diligent about this. And that is exactly why this Mercury is such a big blessing. Now let's move on. We have Ceres, goddess of nurture. In astrology, it can represent everything that nurtures our human self, but also the soul, also our emotional world, and also our intellectual sphere. So basically this means that we are gonna be fighting for whatever food, symbolically speaking, and of course there are gonna be situations when it's actually not symbolical, when it actually means food, especially in certain disadvantaged parts of the world. But anyway, we are going to fight for our sources of nurture. That may mean source of income, inspiration, art, our comfort, and whatever basically keeps us going, the fuel that is the most important source of inner power for the individual who we are. So that means different things for different people. It really, really depends on your personality and even on your genetic configuration, so to speak. Then we have the Sun, we have Venus, and we have the planetoid Eris. But Eris is gonna be in the sign of Aries for a very long time, and she has been there since 1920, if I'm not mistaken. So basically Eris is a permanent guest in the sign of Aries, and she also has so much to do with the symbolism of Aries, because she is Mars' sister. She is the female warrior, the revolutionary, the rebel. So basically her energy goes hand in hand with the sign of Aries. She is extremely powerful and potent in that part of the sky. And that is exactly why this new moon and all of next week and even the weeks that follow are going to be so very intense, chaotic, and wild, especially collectively speaking, but I'll get to that in a second. Because this Mercury, the Sun, Venus, and ultimately Ceres as well are going to conjunct Aries. So Aries will combust them, Aries will activate their rebellious qualities, and with the square to Pluto, that is a warrior energy, that is tension. Now, of course, this square between Aries and Pluto is going to be playing out in different ways for different people. For example, for some people, this Pluto represents something which has to do with the self, the shadow, weaknesses, traumas, illusions, the past. In other words, all of what we are already so very, very used to. As I said, this Aries and Pluto square is a very long-term energy. So we have been having this in our lives for quite some times now, at least 2-3 years. So this can be seen like a final test of just how strong, proficient, ambitious, and wise we have become due to all the inner work that we have been doing for years now. So this will be a moment when we have to shine and we have to prove both to ourselves and the universe that we have actually tried our very, very hardest in the most serious and devoted manner to change and to embody our powers, our purity, a healthy attitude towards the self and life and everything. But of course, it all depends on where this Pluto in the sign of Capricorn is in your personal chart. For some people, it's material situation. For other people, their studies, their skills, their masteries. For other people, it might be a home or their accommodation. They want to change houses, and that is the massive obstacle. For other people, it's work relationship, like relationship with their bosses, their superiors, the company itself. For other people, it can be their life partners or things that go on in their love lives, their patterns, so to speak. And this is basically how this Pluto and Aries square, and naturally the Pluto, the Sun, Pluto, Venus, Pluto, Mercury squares are going to be playing out in our lives individually. But we must not forget that maybe Pluto and Aries are almost equal in their influences and powers, because both planets are very, very far from the Sun, Aries being even further away than Pluto, and they're roughly the same size, and even in physical reality and astronomy, they roughly have the same composition. But when the personal planets, this Mercury, Sun, and Venus are going to be squaring Pluto as well, well, in that case, well, even though Aries is empowering them greatly, yet still, personally, they cannot defeat the influence of Pluto. So that's why this Pluto is profoundly transformative. Because even if you overcome your shadow, even if you overcome all the obstacles and limitations that might want to prevent you from accomplishing your goals and dreams or taking action or choices, still the lesson and the intensity of this energy is always going to stay with you. So Pluto will not be defeated in the sense that Pluto in its highest quality is truth. It is total honesty to the self. So none of us will forget whatever we lived through in this period. So that will always stay with us. And if we are wise, we can take this as an alchemical energy, the lesson of all of it. It can give us a lot of power and life experience for our futures. And also some individuals will definitely have to reach a compromise, especially what they want to achieve or do for themselves is very, very idealistic and not really down to earth. Well, this is where this Pluto can represent the middle path. So the goal has to be transformed, readapted, changed, so it can be enacted or it can manifest in physical reality. So quite a lot of us are gonna have that part of this energy playing out. And at the same time, even though not exactly at this new moon, later on in the week, Pluto will also hold a minor astrological conversation, a quincunx, with Mars, and these two planets are each other's octaves. So Mars is the lower octave of Pluto, and Pluto is the higher octave of Mars, which can also mean a certain kind of compromise or an unexpected situation, or perhaps news, perhaps communication, perhaps data, statistics, or an advice or anything that can basically rearrange your plans. Of course, this doesn't mean having to surrender and give up. It just means the need to adapt and be very, very versatile. One of the expressions of Mars in the sign of Gemini. Yes, Mars is willpower, Mars is action, Mars is energy. Gemini is very, very practical. It has a lot to do with the mind and the modus operandi. But so does Pluto in Capricorn. So when these two meet in a awkward kind of celestial conversation, well, it is Mars who has to change its ways, not surrender, not give up, but it has to adapt so that it can accomplish what it desires. Also, this adaptation can represent the need to be even more patient, the need to wait for the right time, the right conditions, so to speak. So that might also be part of the picture for many of us. Now, from a collective perspective, Aries is the goddess of revolution, basically, because she is in this very, very instinctual and warrior part of the sky. Well, it is pretty straightforward how this will play out in the diverse stage. Protests, revolutions, people taking to the streets, people fighting for their rights, their freedom, their individuality, equality, equity, all of this. But because Aries is extremely chaotic and there is a certain kind of cruelty to her symbolism, maybe some people, individuals or groups of people are going to show us some very, very desperate gestures or very uninspired action which kind of shocks us to our cores, especially that the most negative expression of this overall energy, and this is where I mean absolutely everything, well, it can be severe frustration, desperation, where a human being, because of the inner forces at work, because it cannot get what it wants, because its desires become so intense that they start eating them up from the inside, consuming them, or a moment of absolute rage, when rage is hand in hand with depression. So some people out there are definitely gonna lose their rationality and do acts which are very, very extreme. But this is exactly the reason why astrology is such a very helpful tool. Now that we know that in some cases, yes, this is such a really positive energy, this is so action oriented, this is motivational and ambitious, yet not every individual is very balanced, and even if they're actually balanced on the inside, life doesn't always reflect what is on the inside. Some people might simply not have any material resources, for example, to do anything with their lives right now. So they might feel the frustration, they might feel the desperation, they might feel both extremely powerful from the inside as their desires, but at the same time totally powerless materially. But this is where wisdom, understanding, and self-knowledge comes into play, because when they know that this is what's happening on the inside, well, they're not going to do anything desperate, but rather they will try to adapt a coping mechanism, like go to a counselor, speak to someone, go out in nature, just try to relieve the tension, de-stress, etc. And this wisdom, this understanding can potentially be life-saving. Also, another layer to this energy, at the time of this new moon, at the very beginning of the week, Venus holds a square with Pluto, which is never ever ever an easy energy, because it can truly stir us up emotionally and even instinctually. So that can mean conflict, that can mean fights, that can mean urges and very strong desires, sexually for example. So that expression of Pluto and Venus square in a couple, in a committed relationship, it can mean infidelity, it can mean addictions, it can mean the shadow of your partner, it can also be self-indulgence, it can also be a very egocentric way of doing things and an attitude towards life. But the best expression of this energy is definitely true and authentic honesty with the self. And regardless of how this energy plays out, even if it's like temptations or infidelity or urges, frustrations, etc., those are still messengers of what is happening in our emotional world. So everything comes down to honesty with the self. So even if it's a rather not so favorable expression, or even if it's, Pluto can be seen as the hand of fate. So whenever we have some kind of inner conflict or are not honest with ourselves, fate will try to reveal that to us through exactly these very symbolic fated connections, which can be seen as temptations or manifesting something which is not very positive based on personal illusions or misaligned beliefs, or simply not paying attention to our feelings. But ultimately, all of these experiences lead us to honesty with the self, and this is extremely important under a sky like this. We need to listen to what we feel. We need to listen to what our heart truly wants, because ultimately the big truth and the big picture lies always in the heart. And at the very end of the week, Mercury holds the same conversation with Pluto, which means rationalizing all of this. Being able to translate our feelings into thoughts, into words, into information that our brains can process, and we can work with that. And once we understand ourselves, our emotions, and whatever goes on inside of us, both through the heart and also through the mind and rationality, well, that is a moment when we have clarity and we have power to make the right choices, the right decision based on self-knowledge and honesty with the self. But of course, even though this is the big picture, there are so very many blessings in the sky. We have an absolutely amazing trine held by Mars and Jupiter. Jupiter is the planet of inner truth. It is our life philosophies, our highest thinking, our beliefs, and ultimately the ancients saw Jupiter as the great benefic bestower of blessings. So it is the planet of good fortune. It expands everything that it touches. And in our case, Mars in the sign of Gemini, while exactly working towards our plans, our future plans, whatever we desire to express, self-expression, work, ambition, projects, creativity, communication, new connections, new friendships, even new romantic partnerships. Venus sextile Mars can always represent everything which has to do with romance. And of course, Venus holds the same type of sextile with Jupiter. Jupiter is the major planet of good fortune. Venus is the lower planet of good fortune. So this can also be a very lucky energy It can help us with a lot of breakthroughs, inspiration, and blessed instinct, exactly what I said earlier with Mercury, the intelligence of Mother Nature inside of us. Just that Jupiter goes way beyond Mother Nature. It is also whatever we believe, our faith, our worldview and philosophies. And if those are optimistic and we genuinely believe in ourselves and our powers and our happiness and the positive influence we have over other people or society or the world in general, well, that is really good news. One way or another, it is a truly helpful and divinely guided and inspired energy. Now, if this wasn't enough, both Venus and as the other Aries planets, the Sun and Mercury, and later on even Ceres, touch 26, 27 degrees of Aries. They also hold a supremely harmonious celestial conversation with the galactic center, which means divine, inspirational, and creational energy. So basically, this can mean divine intervention, where either the divine kind of guides and animates us to do something really big in the life of another person, or vice versa. So my advice is, even if you fall in that category where next week you might be guided or inspired to take things slowly, not make any abrupt decisions, or take any very quick and hasty action, despite the fact that that is the main theme, you don't really have to worry, because if that is your situation, it is something to do with divine timing. Chances are the universe will make you wait for something much bigger than the rest of people will receive. So if you're inspired and guided to wait or take things slowly, well, it will definitely be worth it. So trust that with all your heart, even if it seems like a setback, it's really, really not. And another beautiful energy is the Sun sextiling Jupiter. That is also divine guidance, but it can also play out like synchronicities, guiding you to a right place at the right time, where something wonderful might happen to you, a lucky moment, a lucky breakthrough, meeting someone very important for your future, or something that you do, say, create, express, is blessed, and it will lead you to some kind of blessing or a success. Mercury also sextiles Saturn at the beginning of the week, and this is really good because Saturn is very grounded, and Saturn in Aquarius is information, perhaps advice or communication or connections, social connections, friends, or basically any kind of humanitarian help or any kind of, let's say, legal help, official help. So, which means if you feel lost or are confused about something or don't have enough information, there is definitely help out there. Maybe a highly skilled professional, someone with experience, a good friend of yours, someone who is part of your social connection, maybe a highly influential person who you know, maybe it can be friend, family member, parent, or something, an information, a guidance, a promise, a communication that just comes to you and helps you ground your plans, your ideas. It kind of helps you to logically and rationally see how your plans, how whatever you desire to accomplish can come together in physical reality in a very down-to-earth way. So that is always very, very optimistic. So individually speaking, for the individual, the energy of next week, and not just the new moon, but the overall picture, including the energies that are going to be part of our lives in the following weeks and months, it is actually serving our greatest good. It is helping us to get where we need to be. It is helping us to live life to the fullest, authentically, to live our truth, to be able to express who we truly are without shame, fear, or guilt, without the oppression of society's not so favorable influences, or basically the whole world in general. It is teaching us all of the coping skills that we need to navigate in the world, the mysterious world of the future, because we still don't know really what we're heading towards. But what we do know is that there is absolutely no reason why we cannot be happy, why we cannot be powerful, why we cannot be okay. So even though this energy next week might not really be as straightforward and positive for everyone equally, even if you get a couple of setbacks or delays, or perhaps not so favorable news or communication, for example, a business doesn't come together, or that job which you thought was right for you, the contract will not be signed, etc. You shouldn't really feel discouraged, neither should you worry, neither should you trust yourself and where the universe is guiding you less, because it will all work out. Every such delay, every such inconvenience is actually a very, very helpful energy, because it just reflects that perhaps some minor adjustments needed to be made in your plans or in your attitude or whatever you're fighting for and trying to accomplish. And those are not necessarily negative things. Like, for example, someone can have a massive epiphany just one day, and because of that realization, they just grow as a person, as a being, as a spirit. So of course your future plans have to be updated to suit the person who you became suddenly. So that is exactly why sometimes it is exactly these delays or minor inconveniences that are even bigger blessings, because everything in life, in the universe, just flows. So we have to get aligned to the specifics of the flow. Now, of course, this energy might play out in a different way in the lives of others. Some people will have all the opportunities, the choices, the truth, the actions that they need to take, just that they might find it extremely difficult or challenging or time-consuming. They may have the sensation after they make that choice, take the action, etc., that they bent into something way too tough for them to chew. And even in this case, don't you worry, don't feel discouraged, believe in yourself and trust in yourself. Because if you got where you are, that means that the universe supports you and has your back. That which seems like a giant or like a huge obstacle right now may turn into something totally else tomorrow. It can become that much easier with each single passing day, with each new minor experience even. So don't be discouraged by the mirage, by the so-called Fata Morgana of how things, especially how big things seem in the present moment. Because if the universe gifts you with something big, with something really soliciting, well, that means that it's for your highest good and you are way more powerful than you can possibly imagine. So it's actually a very, very good sign. But of course, on the world stage, it's a totally different picture, because this is an extremely assertive energy. This is actually an animalistic energy, a predatory energy. And especially in these times when there is so much injustice highlighted in the world, not that it wasn't always there, but now we are seeing it for what it is. Well, you can imagine that this will enrage people to their very core. So I don't have to depict anything of what's about to happen, because everyone can just make up their own scenarios in their minds, but it's gonna be very heated and extremely chaotic. And if we add to this the ongoing long-term Uranus-Saturn square, it can also be full of surprises, especially of the not so pleasant kind. But as I said, this is collectively, this is globally, this is part of the picture, this is how things have to play out. Because if people do not scream, if people do not shout, if people do not embody what we call the power and unity of the people, well then our leaders, our representatives and centralized power and the big corporations, etc., everything that Capricorn symbolizes, and also everything that Saturn also symbolizes, then as a collective, as a species even, we are not able to move forward. We need to have some kind of unity, even if it's based on agreement, diplomacy, compromises, mutually accepted terms and conditions. Still, we do need unity to move forward into the future. And one of the reasons is actually karmic. And it's not something absurd like a spiritual philosophy, but if we think about it deeply, it's actually very authentic, if I can use this word, because Uranus in Taurus, and then this last December's great conjunction in Aquarius, then the upcoming eclipse in Sagittarius, all of these energies represent a massive, never experienced before technological advancement, scientific advancement, groundbreaking, life-changing scientific discoveries, which is absolutely wonderful and good news, but with great power comes great responsibility. So if we're not united with, like, as a species, then does this technological advancement, which is gonna be massive, now don't get me wrong, it is not just some new theory or new phone or new computer, it is massive, like it is truly, literally life-changing up until 2026. So if we're not united as a species, who does this power belong to? The scientists, the inventors, the leaders, centralized power. Who is actually the possessor of these sources of power? Because that is what ultimately everything is, power, knowledge is power. And we're already in a phase where we have contained antimatter, so that is a very, very, very big deal. Because it means that we've broken one of the limitations, one of the borders of the universe through our minds, our intellects, and our technology, of course. And that kind of changes, at least from a spiritual and even quantum perspective, the whole game, everything. So until collectively, of course, we kind of make up our minds who we are as a species, what we want to do with ourselves, what we are doing with our knowledge, with our massive scientific advancements. Well, until we don't reach a conclusion, until we don't embody an identity, well, things are not gonna lead us anywhere, because that is the core of everything. Knowing who you are, knowing what you wanna do, knowing what you live for, knowing what you exist for. Like, our species is a social one, like ants, like bees. And it is also obvious that we cannot be controlled in any way, shape or form by a hive mind or by one singular willpower or whatever. Not even through, democratic means. Not even legally, not even morally. So, we kind of have to reach either some kind of unity, or we just basically separate as a species. Anyway, it doesn't matter how we get there as long as we kind of do something and step up our game even morally, even spiritually. Because right now, what we are doing is very disproportionate to our potential. And of course, the scientific discoveries and the technological advancements are not gonna stop. They're gonna enter our lives very, very rapidly, and each big groundbreaking discovery is gonna quantum leap us further and further. So that means morally, spiritually, psychologically even, we cannot go backwards or stay in the same place. We kind of have to figure out ourselves, I repeat, as a species. And this is exactly why Aries and all of this revolutionary, rebellious, assertive, conflictual, war energy is an ongoing theme for some time now. Because it rings alarm bells that we as a species kind of have to make up our mind, if not anything else, of what we want to do and who it is that we are and how we want to exist together, how we want to operate. And the universe is patient, the universe is understanding, the universe is helpful and supportive, but we don't have infinite time. Which means that if we don't figure out all of these things very soon, then it is very obvious that we cannot be trusted and we need help. And I don't know about anyone else, but I personally would really not like to receive that help. I would much rather want to believe and think that we can truly work this out. And one way or another, even if not in the most ideal ways, we can still coexist with each other. And we never have to give up on our human decency, our morals, and whatever makes us actually human. Last but not least, like at every single new moon, regardless of where it takes place and when, I can only advise all of us that at this time, Sunday or Monday, set new goals of intention, crystallize inside your mind, your heart, your feelings, your desires, meditate, or do whatever resonates with who you are, as long as just express them. Plant those seeds, plant those intentions, either write it down on paper or just think them, feel them, meditate on them, talk about them with your friends, with your loved ones, or listen to guided meditations or sounds, frequencies, whatever is fit for you personally. But if there was ever a time to dream and think big, well, that time is definitely now. So I really wish from all my heart that this new moon, one way or another, transforms your life into the story that you've always wanted to live and experience, and may all your dreams come true. Well, thank you so much for listening. Thank you for all of your shares, your likes, your comments. If you'd like to support my channel and my work, you can donate on the PayPal link in the description below. Thank you once again for listening. Wish everyone a magical and an amazing new moon. Until next time, bye for now.